Hello, my airborne brothers, back again. And this is something that I actually want to put up to prove a point. Sometimes I actually do put up videos to prove a point rather than give information. And this is one of them because I always tell people I am a political agnostic. I'm an amoral pragmatist when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? In my personal life, I can bend either way. But for politics and economics, I am pretty much a amoral pragmatist, which is part of the black pill. But anyway, Biden signs executive order expanding Trump-era ban on investments in some Chinese companies. President Joe Biden has expanded the Trump-era ban on investment in dozens of Chinese firms that Washington believes are linked to China's military. Biden signed an executive order Thursday that prohibits Americans from owning or trading any securities tied to 59 companies, citing the threat of Chinese surveillance technology. The original order, signed by former President Donald Trump in November, applied to 31 Chinese companies that the administration said enable the development and modernization of China's military and directly threaten U.S. security. Biden's new order goes into effect on August 2nd. The Biden announcement largely continues the campaign his predecessor had started against the Chinese tech and other businesses. Many companies that were on Trump's list, including smartphone maker Huawei and Hikvision, a major manufacturer and suppliers of video surveillance equipment, remain on this one. Some of the country's biggest telecommunications companies, including China Mobile, China Telecommunications, and China Unicom, are also still banned. The decision to expand the scope of the order is due to the unusual and extraordinary threats posed by Chinese surveillance technology, according to the White House, which added that the decision allows the United States to prohibit in a targeted and scoped manner U.S. investments in Chinese companies that undermine the security or democratic values of the United States and our allies. China condemned the move at a press briefing on Friday and said that the U.S. has unscrupulously suppressed and restricted Chinese companies. China firmly opposes Washington's move as one that hurts not only the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese companies, but also the interests of global investors, including U.S. investors, said Wang Wenbin, spokesperson for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Several of the companies that have been named in both orders that have previously dismissed claims that they were tied to the Chinese military as groundless. Xiaomi even successfully lobbied against its inclusion on the Trump-era list. And in May this year, the U.S. Department of Defense and the smartphone manufacturer reached an agreement to set aside the ban on the company. The move from Biden suggests that Washington isn't rushing to make amends with Beijing. Analysts have previously said that while Biden will likely strike a more predictable and diplomatic tone with China than Trump did, they don't expect the administration to ease up on tech and trade policy. The new order moves the world a step closer to strategic decoupling in the global financial sector. Wow, said Alex Capri, a research fellow at Heinrich Foundation and a visiting senior fellow at National University of Singapore. He added that it underscores the difficulty that American financial firms are going to have in the future trying to sort out which of their investments have ties back to the Chinese state. Political clashes have already exacerbated tensions between the two countries. A March summit in Alaska between senior U.S. and Chinese officials ended in an unusual diplomatic spat. The two sides have also feuded recently over a handful of issues, including human rights abuses in Xinjiang and the origins of COVID-19. Even so, the countries are restarting talks on some issues. Beijing said Thursday that it is now having normal communication with Washington on trade and the economy, citing recent discussions between Chinese Premier Liu He, U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen as professional, frank, and constructive. Doug Fuller, an associate professor at the City University of Hong Kong, and said Biden's move does not necessarily mean the administration will radically broaden other policies. The overall trend seems to be a fair amount of continuity with the Trump administration's China policies, which with neither large rollbacks nor tripling down on sanctions and other controls, he told CNN Business. Okay, that's from CNN. That link will be in the description. This is on June 4th. Okay, the reason that I put this out is I've been telling you that sometimes it really doesn't matter who sits in the seat when they get their paperwork. Guess what? A lot of times, like I would say, like 80 to 90% of the times, they have to do the same thing their predecessor did. It's called continuity of government. All presidents, no matter who they are, even including Donald Trump, believe in continuity of government. It's just easier to do it that way. When you started trying to rip up things and reverse a whole bunch of things, okay, that's when it gets screwed up. Some things that Biden didn't believe in, he reversed, but those things are always minor. Those things are always minor. The major things, if you look at it, the major stuff that Trump did or Trump did in his administration, Biden still continues on it. You would think that Joe Biden would have said something about the heartbeat bills going to the Supreme Court. He has not. There's a reason for that. Demographics. Doesn't matter whether you are a so-called liberal Democrat, which Biden is not a liberal Democrat, or a hardcore, staunch conservative Republican, which Trump was not a hardcore, staunch Republican. He wasn't conservative. In fact, Biden's probably more conservative than Trump is. So a lot of the policies that Trump put in, Biden is not going to touch. This is just one of them. Now, I thought, because I was wrong, I thought Biden wanted more 5G chips. And Huawei makes the most 5G chips in the world. I thought he would actually roll back some of Huawei's sanctions to get these 5G chips. I was wrong. He's actually continuing the isolation policy that Trump actually began. That's the way it looks. Now, do I agree or disagree? Well, you know, for the United States, I would say going isolationist is probably not a good deal. If Biden's going to continue this, I would disagree with him. But for the most part, with a few hiccups here or there, you probably can't tell that big of a difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. In the country, there's not that big a difference. Most of the stuff that Biden's doing, Donald Trump would have done also, you know, especially with opening up the economy, trying to get people vaccinated, the stimulus, all that kind of stuff, I do believe Trump would have done anyway. I think Biden's a little bit more skillful at doing it than Trump is or ever was or ever will be, because that's not Trump's stilo. But for the most part, the policies are pretty close. I think he's going to do something that Trump didn't do or couldn't do, even though I do believe Trump wanted to do, was just pull those troops out of the Middle East for the most part. I think Biden's going to get that done. I think it's easier for a Democrat to do it than a Republican. But I really want to say, a lot of times it really doesn't matter who sits in the seat. You would think it does, but a lot of times it does not. It really doesn't matter. They have 80 to 90% of the stuff that they have to do that's important. They got to pretty much do the same things. They tried to take that 10, maybe 15% of leeway and put their stamp on it. But for the most time, you can see the policies of the last, I would say 5, 6 presidents. It's pretty close to the line, pretty close to what each one has done before. Now, unless you get something that's massive and tragic, or like economically, like what happened with 2008, 2009 with the banking crisis and the real estate crisis. Okay, presidents have to do different things. Same thing with Donald Trump. Well, when it came to COVID, he had to change the way he did things. And I do believe Biden is going to continue that, especially the first year, because the first year is basically on the last president. You don't really get blamed harshly until your second year in, because you can't blame the last president, because most of his policies and what he set forward, the things he put in motion, will probably expire within a year. And then a new president has to actually put money in to extend them if that's what he wants. So if you keep an eye on the environment, if you keep an eye on what's going on around that president and what's really important, you can pretty much tell what he's going to do. Biden has been fairly predictable. Even with Russia, Biden's been fairly predictable, because Biden and that crew are never fans of Russia, even though I don't think much will happen. And I think, because the Chinese are a rival, you'll see far more focus on the rival, especially after COVID-19. I think China shot themselves in the foot with COVID-19. But that yet remains to be seen. In fact, we're going to have to talk about Fauci and Trump and that kind of milieu. I've read some of it. I've heard some of it. I'm not, especially with the emails. I have to really dig into that before I actually do it. But suffice to say, Biden has not done anything to really surprise me. Not cutting Huawei loose off of this list is a mild surprise, but not really. Just want to let you guys know it's a lot of times with the things that matter, there's very good continuity between presidents. It really is. Even going back to President Johnson and Richard Nixon. Because a lot of stuff that President Johnson did as far as civil rights and women's rights and stuff like that, Nixon just carried it through. He didn't change anything. The Vietnam policy, Johnson's Vietnam policy pretty much stayed with Nixon up until 1973. So a lot of times presidents don't really do anything out of line or very far from the line. You look at Barack Obama and George Bush Jr., right? George Bush Jr. and Michelle Obama are very good friends. They always sit next to each other, right? And always telling jokes. So they're not as far apart as you think they are. So sometimes don't believe the hype. Stop watching Fox News and pick up read this stuff daily. Wall Street, even the Wall Street Journal is doing a pretty good job lately. Washington Post, read that stuff daily. A lot of times they'll lead you in the right direction when something shifts. If you don't like them, read Business Insider Daily or read Zero Hedge or some other conservative rag. The thing is, read more. Stop looking for sound bites. Sound bites will always lead you wrong. Anyway, with that, I'm going to jump off here. This is BGS out. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.